So I was going to do a video about some of the revealing that's been given to me. And I've done this for years as far as my testimony. And I've delivered 3 babies in the field. Almost 4, but not quite. And we won't go through that story. But I've also had 3 of my own children. Isaiah 66:8, it speaks of a nation born in a day. Well, born in Strong's 23:42, to twist, to whirl, to dance, to writhe, fear, tremble, travail, to be in anguish, brought forth, to be born, to be distressed, suffer birth pains. And any mother who has not had an epidural or an epidural that didn't take, you know how that feels. It's horrible. So dancing and writhing are done at celebrations, also with significant life events. Celebrations, mourning, or childbirth. The deep connections between physical and spiritual experiences. It's something you don't forget seeing that baby. Once you see your baby, oh my gosh, everything else is like out the window. But during the birth, the baby whirls in a circular motion. Just before the head merges, there's a burning sensation, and they call this crowning. And this is the ring of fire. I noticed it when I gave birth naturally. They told me to stop pushing because I can only push when there's a contraction. Because if you don't, it will cause tearing and the need for an episiotomy. I wrote that on there. But the burning and stinging last a short time, followed by numbness. That this occurs from the stretching to 10 centimeters, that the vaginal nerves are blocked. It's God's way of having a natural anesthetic in the woman. There's no set time on how long the delivery will last. The more children that are born, the more quicker it goes. And on the external rotation is when the baby turns to be delivered, and it's turned 25 degrees. And it's to get the baby in alignment. And when they turn in line with their shoulders up, one above and one below, their body they turn to where they're facing the mother's back. I guess more when they come down, they're facing her back. And as they come down the birth canal before they're born, they do this turning thing after the baby's head is out. After the baby's head's crowned out. And that's so you can deliver the shoulders over the pubic bone. Now, when you're talking about an episiotomy and a tearing, you don't want the tearing. The less tearing, the better. So you can only push or work when there is a contraction, pain. That's when they tell you more or less to start panning like a dog, is what they tell you. Because if you're panning, you're not trying to push. You're releasing that through your mouth versus trying to push the baby out and tear. I had that experience, and it's not fun. But there's 4 degrees of tearing that man science documents. And that's the one that needs no stitches and heals. It's just a very small tear. The 2nd degree tear is the perineum tissue inside the vagina and requires stitches in a few weeks to heal. A 3rd degree tear of the perineum and muscles around the anus requires surgery and takes a few weeks to heal. A 4th degree tear is the perineum, anal sphincter, and mucous membrane that lines the rectum. And that's the rectal vault. And it requires surgery and even longer time to heal. So that's why God has times and seasons. So when there's no pain, contraction, don't force things. It's all in God's perfect timing. If you do things that you're not supposed to, and you're ordained to be working for Him, it can cause a whole lot of problems, and it's going to fall on your own head. But I know, and that's where I was talking about, I know after tearing, healing occurred, there was what was called an itch. And I spoke of that on something else, and it hit me when I was reading it, and I was like, oh man, I don't remember. It's within the past few videos where I spoke about that, doing the readings of the different meanings of words, because words can have many meanings. But they use water, a warm water, to flush over it for soothing, for helping healing. So when there's a tear, if by mistake you do something that tears, causes damage to somebody, please, please, please gently use, I think of the warmth as love and the water as the word, and it will help soothe that. That's why it's so important to have that word on your heart, to have it when it needs to be pulled, and let God direct you, because you can help heal somebody. But note, with each contraction, the baby's head will be visible, then bob back in, or bob back in. It's a bobbing. It's in and out, depending on the contraction. And once the baby's head is far enough down in the birth canal, crownings to soon occur, and it's in an instant, in a moment, in a twinkling of an eye. But if you think about, and this is something that kind of like deja vu today, I guess, more or less, is what people would call it. But I think it was a revelation more from God, is, we just sprung forward, and how tiring and exhausting it is today. And it takes about a week to adjust to it. But it reminded me of the head bobbing in as the springing forward and then falling back in the fall, and how it makes you feel exhausted. And let me tell you, these little babies are probably exhausted after birth. It's a lot of trauma, but it's beautiful in the end. But the presentation makes a huge difference. The celiac position, head down, ready for birth, tucks its chin to its chest, and looks to the mother's back. So when you think about your babies coming down, the baby will come down through the birth canal, come out, which is why they tell you to rock your hips, to make it more easy for your baby to come down. Otherwise, you can get the baby in distress if the hips aren't tilted. But it's almost like a diving motion, like a fish would do, or like if you dive in a swimming pool. But that's when they come through the birth canal, and then they lift their head up, and that's when you start doing the bobbing, and then the crown of the head is what presents first. And if you've ever noticed, we all have crowns on our head. One of my daughters has a double crown. She always hated it because her hair didn't lay right. But God told us not to let anybody steal our crown of life. That comes from our mothers. And dads. Dad has a play in it too. Don't be mistaken. But I'm going to tell you, when you carry a child for months and you develop that bond, it's so strong. And, as much as God loves us, it's intense. I bared witness of this when I laid in his hands. It felt like his mother's love, just enveloping you and embracing you, giving you a hug. Father wants everybody saved. He doesn't want any to perish. And we have to go through this to try to save others. But we have to remember, in our season, it's only when there's pain from the contractions. That's what we're going through right now. And I found this kind of ironic, and I hope it can bring some comfort, because anybody who's been through this will totally understand. And it's like, once you go through it and it's over and you're on the other side of that, how wonderful it is. And you really don't remember it until you talk about it. But it's life-changing. It brings life. We have a big job. but we were born for such a time as this.